Is it appropriate to ask if the interviewer could? Yes. So the question is it okay to ask the interviewer, can you elaborate more on the day-to-day operations? I did read the job description and know what the job is, but can you maybe elaborate more? That is an appropriate question. The downfall to that is, depending on who you're interviewing with, may not have the most up-to-date answer or no details. Again, if you're asking the HR person, so if you're asking me, who knows overall, I know the overall duties, I don't know down in the details of exactly what a day-to-day that you're going to do, or between 10 and 12 you're doing this. I know your job is a this, and I can talk the overview. So you can ask that question. It is a good question to ask. Just be mindful that the person you're asking may not know the answer or be able to give you more detailed answer, because they may just not know. How should you ask about how performance will be measured on the job? That's a great question. Nobody's ever asked that question in an interview I've been on. And that is a great question. How should you ask about how performance will be measured on the job? I don't know why most people don't ask that question. I've never heard that question, and it should be asked, because you should want to know how you're going to be rated. How are you going to be rated? Is it going to be how many sales I made? Is it going to be how many boxes was I able to load, or how fast I was able to do this one task? That's important. That's important to know, because you don't want to start working on a job and don't know what's going to help or hurt you. Because you may think it's important to have 2 sales. That may be important to you. I'm going to focus on having these 2 sales, which may not be important to the company at all, which may not be important to your performance at all. So that's a good question to ask at an interview. Again, in all the years that I've been in HR, no one has ever asked that question. And that is one of the most important questions. Next to, when do you plan to make a decision? You should ask, should I include volunteer skills on my resume, especially if it relates to the position for which I'm applying? Absolutely. So putting your volunteer skills is important, regardless of does it relate to your skills or not. Because now let me make sure I'm clear. If you volunteered 5 years ago for something that doesn't relate to the job you're going for, keep that. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. If you volunteered for something that's not related and you're still doing it, so you are still volunteering, providing services, that's a good skill. A lot of people don't realize that. That's a good skill, because it shows that you are of service, that you're giving your time to something that's important to you. Some people, work with the homeless or work at an animal shelter. If you're still doing it and you're going for an HR position, working in the shelter has nothing to do with HR, but if you're still doing it, put that on there, because that again shows that you are of service and you give yourself, you give your time. Now, if you're volunteering and it relates to the job you're going for, make sure you highlight that as well. You can highlight the skills, because if I'm volunteering at an animal shelter, that's not for a job I'm going after, I may just list, I volunteer as an animal shelter as a dog walker, right? I've been volunteering from 2015 to current. That's it. If I'm going for a dog walking position, I would list more. I walk 2 dogs at a time for 20 minutes each. As I'm walking, I'm making sure that if they have any accidents, you want to go in more detail, because that's important, because you're going for a position as a dog walker or as it relates to a dog walker. If not, you can just state that you volunteered. But if you're volunteering now, still, currently, regardless of it relates to the job you're going for or not, you should put that on your resume. You should talk about it at the interview, because it's interesting. you know, that you volunteer. Very few people volunteer nowadays. So if you volunteer, then that's a highlight. Kudos to you. And you need to mention that. When they say, tell me about yourself, there's a good time, there's a good spot right there to put that, talk about that volunteerism. I want to remind everybody that if you haven't already bought the 90 Days to Employment Journal, get it now. If you or a friend of yours, or you know somebody or a family member is looking for a job, the 90 Days to Employment Journal, every Wednesday at 4 p.m., we go live on Instagram to answer all your HR questions. And see you at the next video.